All right. Good evening. This is Penelope Flynn and the rest of the Blerdsassins Next Door. We got Cranston, Nikki, Otto, and we have Dr. King also visiting with us this evening. And tonight, our issue is going to be those films and television shows that inspire us during this campaign season to get out and vote. So, as usual, before we get started, we talk a little about the weather. Cranston, your top center. How is the weather in Jacksonville?
It is sunny. It has been mid 80s all week, and which has been very draining. But the thing is, because it was cold before, everybody's dressing up in long pants and sweaters. So I don't know how they stand it, but it's interesting.
All right. And how about you, Nikki? How's the weather?
That's nice. It's hot, sunny, in the
Well, we just
80s
say,
now.
okay, I'll say, but that's not really hot. I mean, 90s is hot.
Okay. It was
Yeah,
nice.
it's nice. Okay. I mean, it's better than, being terrible, right?
That's true.
Right. And Otto, if you can tear yourself away from Svengoolie, how's the weather?
Uh, yeah, Svengoolie is Invasion from Mars. A lot of
All
good
right.
stuff. But anyway, this weather sucks, man. Because it's warm. It got nothing to do with October.
Yeah.
Oops.
Yeah. I mean, actually, it
And
gotten
it's
cooler.
dry as heck.
Hmm.
You know, rain. It would have been nice to have a nice dreary rainy day.
Hmm.
No such luck.
Nope.
Well, I would know because I spent most of the day asleep. I mean, I got up, I said, boy, I'm gonna go do all these things. And I said, I'm gonna go lay down for a while, take a nap, and next thing I know it's 4 o'clock. So there you go. It's a lost day. But I'm here. I made it here. So we got our regional weather, and so now it's time to get into it. We were talking a little bit, Otto and I, about a couple of issues that we might want to get to. On number one, of course, post-election, when they're bringing in all the returns, the things that you focus on, those shows that to keep you away from watching all that nonsense. But right now, while we are trying to get through the campaign season, election season, we want to talk about some of those films that inspire us to get out and vote. And I get us started because one of my favorite films is Norma Ray, and it's about unionizing. So I always felt that that film spoke to the issue of people just wanting to be able to get together and do collective bargaining for the benefit of everyone there working together against the business owners who primarily are concerned pretty much with profit and wealth. And I know they have to keep the business going, but sometimes practices are oppressive with regard to the employees. So because Norma Ray is one of my favorite films, that is the thing that inspires me to get out and vote when I think the concept, like collective bargaining, each time you add one person, to this group, you get stronger. So each vote, makes us stronger. So, whatever it is, that you're voting for, that you get out there and you vote, because collectively it makes us all stronger, even if we don't agree. The reality is that we get out and we take action with regard to our government and its practices. So for me, Norma Ray is one of the films that makes me want to get out and exercise my franchise rights. All right, and I'll go to you, Francis, since you're top middle. Is there any film that affects you, in that way that says, okay, I'm going to go out and vote?
Yeah, well, one thing I was going to say to your point that it's amazing that this idea of simply trying to get better treatment for your workers was considered a radical idea
Mm-hmm.
and something that was to be avoided. And if you watch the Gilded Age, you see that all the factory owners in the 1% of their day not only thought that collective bargaining and treating workers fairly was a radical and undesired notion, but there were so many of the workers, especially the ones that worked in their households, that thought that unions were a bad idea too. And
What do you mean? What do you
and
mean by that?
it's just crazy,
I'm sorry,
when you get that, and then you
Cranston.
have
Cranston. I don't
yeah.
watch Gilded Age,
Mm-hmm.
and you just said something about people in the household also thought that it was a bad idea.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
Gilded Age is a sort of, it's a drama that takes place around the turn of the 19th century or 20th century, and it's sort of like an Americanized version of Upstairs, Downstairs. And the downstairs people, all of the house servants, the butlers and the cooks and all of that, think that the idea of these people talking about unionizing is like, like the end of the world. And they wouldn't have it, even though it would be to their benefit. And that's it about that sort of attitude that these people have, that the idea of treating workers fairly and not working them to death is considered it's considered something that's really wrong. So,
Wow. So, I mean, as far as you're concerned, then is that a show, film that inspires you, or is this something else that inspires you to get out and vote?
The one that inspired me was when I was reading the blurb for the show. There was this really kind of I guess it's a Z movie called Wild in the Streets. And it was supposed to be a comedy and political satire. And it was about this rock band that was trying to get votes for teenagers. And that's basically what they were trying to do, and about how the adults were trying to keep them from doing it. But the whole thing is that even though for the right reason, these people were doing the wrong thing. It was good to try to get the vote, but they just did it. Most of them just did it as a way to tick off their parents, not that they had any type of worldview that needed protecting or projecting or anything. But it did get the idea that, something you didn't think about, that voting was something that you would do later, much, much later. And I think that I came along at about the time right when 18-year-olds were allowed to vote. And it was something that we were all excited about. And I wanted to go out and do it, even though we had absolutely no worldview worth projecting or protecting or anything like that. But we just wanted to take place and participate in it. So, and that was hopefully for most of us, that did start a kind of a lifelong trend. And when you hear people today who proudly say that they're not going to vote for, and you can't make them do it, that you begin to slowly look for 2 pieces of wood that you can make into a cross and stuff to kind of get them away.
All right. Okay, Sonia, I know you kind of came in after we got started. We didn't get to ask you about your weather. So how is it up there in Rochester? I'm not hearing you. I don't know if I got you muted or you muted. Oh, you're muted. You're definitely muted. I see your mic is off. I don't think I can unmute you. I cannot. Oh, there you go. Okay, try it. It shows you're unmuted, but I still can't hear. Can anybody else hear Sonia? And it's just me, maybe?
No.
No. Still can't hear you.
Now you should hear me.
There you go. Yeah.
It changed my microphone on me. Okay. We're in our cold phase right now. It's supposed to get down to like 36 tonight.
Ooh.
But by Halloween, it's supposed to be up in the 80, near 80.
Ooh.
So we're in the cold valley cycle right now.
All right. And now with that out of the way,
yeah.
you have a film, television show that inspires you or has inspired you to vote?
First, I'll do the general category.
Hmm.
Every movie about the way things were for women and civil and African Americans in particular, and then contrasting on what the fight was when you see all the struggles that they went through to get there, inspire, but more in specifically the autobiography of Miss Jane Pittman, seeing to see it as it affected one person's life made a real big difference. Not, yes, they always say 1920 women can vote, and not black women.
Right. Right.
um, and then my Native American friends always pointed out, yeah, we couldn't vote, and even after all that. So to
Wow.
see, and it really hurts me when things are portrayed in black and white, and so people nowadays think, oh, that's old history. We won't go back that far. One, Ruby Bridges is still alive. She just started collecting Social Security, so
Hmm.
it's not that long ago.
Hmm.
And two, there are a lot of people out there who want us to go back to the way it was before. So if you don't vote, you give
Hmm.
that's just a vote for them to say, yes, you can do whatever you want to me.
Well, I look here in the chat of Gary, and he was saying the 92 movie Bob Roberts is a dark comedy. Tim Robbins plays a Trump-like
Hmm.
character who is very evasive when asked issues and sings folk-like songs that romanticize the good old days of America. And he also says The West Wing. It's a
Hmm.
constant inspiration to book.
Mm.
So, I think that even now, like the Bob Roberts film, that the feel goodness. So look at this. I mean, when you think about it, that Trump-like character, and he's playing his folksy songs. But remember how we got caught up, even like somebody Bill Clinton, when he comes in, he takes out his saxophone, he's playing the saxophone, and we get distracted to things like that instead of, okay, so what has your track record really been? Who is it that you get your funding from? Are we going to be expecting more of that in the future? So I think, yeah, it's not just, people like Trump. It's also any of these cult of personality
Hmm.
politicians, and should encourage us, again, like you said, Bob Roberts, to understand that these are distractions. What are these people really offering? What have they actually ever done? You know, and these things should inspire us, if not to vote for someone, to go out and make sure that some other person does not get to that position of power or responsibility. And I guess, and that's another thing to call it, not necessarily a position of power, but a position of responsibility, because you certainly do not want someone who is a maniac to be responsible for your day-to-day living and eating and jobs. You don't want those people to be responsible for you in any way. And I think once we start looking at candidates not as being a position of power, but a position of responsibility, and you have to ask, you may want to go have a beer with this person, but do you want that person to be responsible for making sure that your bills get paid? And the answer was probably going to be no. You know,
My mom would always say, do I trust this person with my daughter?
yeah, that's right.
And
These
if I
things are
don't
very
trust them with my daughter, why am I going to trust them with my country?
right. It's like this, we are putting somebody in a position of responsibility. So once I think we view it as that, instead of, oh, power, no, it's not power, it's responsibility. Like you say, are you leaving this person in control of your daughter, your son, your
Hmm.
home? And if the answer is no, I would not, then it's probably time to think again. Um, Nikki, I know your mic is muted, but are there any shows, movies that kind of inspire you?
No,
No.
no. I
Okay, great.
told you family inspired me.
Very cool. All right. Moving on. Dr. King, so I know you're on YouTube, you're also muted, but having I guess the more perspective on a lot of these issues that are more not just what we remember as children, but have remember like your growing up, your childhood growing up. Are there any films, television shows that inspire you with regard to getting out to vote? And I'm not hearing, and you're not muted on my end, so I don't know, maybe on your end you might have to mute. I don't know. All right, check your sound. Dr. Keats, we're not being able to hear you. And it's not showing that your mic is muted, but it may be turned down.
Or if you're on your phone, your cheek might have hit the mute button.
Yeah, make sure your cheek has not hit the mute
Because mine
button.
always does that.
Yeah, me too. And in the interim, Gary is in the chat room. He's saying that the Idiocracy hits a little close these days. Yep, Idiocracy was really amazing.
I
like the
remember,
part
yeah.
in
I was gonna say,
Idiocracy.
yeah, go ahead. I was gonna say, I remember there was an interview with the writer director, and he said, "I did not mean this to be a manual."
Yeah, exactly. I remember the part with the people who were the quote unquote smart people deciding that they weren't going to have children right away, and they were waiting and waiting, and not have, but they showed the people out in the trailer park who just had just have a whole bunch of children, and then at the end when they're so old that they can't have children, it's kind of like, oh well, so you're not taking any of that knowledge, anything that your perspective doesn't get to the next generation. So it's just, I thought that was always kind of funny, even though, okay, I'm going to wait, I'm going to do this later, I'm going to wait this later.
And Penelope, I was in the backstage. I don't know what happened. I couldn't speak. But as far as movies, just quickly, my cynicism is not.
Okay, now I can hear you, Dr. King. I can hear you, I think.
That's Nikki. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
You can hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, okay. What I was about to say was that recently I was watching the PBS program about Lyndon Baines Johnson, President Johnson, and the history behind how he wrote certain, what is it? What am I trying? He did some amendments that helped us, but the main thing I want to say is that was during my lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember during those days when people were going out and protesting and everything. And a lot of things I just took for granted as to what actually happened were not what actually happened, because I was finding out through watching the program that a lot of the things that he did were not because he so much wanted to help us at that particular moment, but because he was forced to do so. And just as I guess, yeah, well, basically that was what I was concerned about. And I can remember when I was in college and students were going down to rallies, and I didn't get a chance to do it, but one of my roommates at that little time when I was at Mrs. Williams, she had gone down, and she said things had gotten really hot in downtown Tallahassee, and she was able to back her way out and get back home. But I mean, I actually lived those days.
Mm-hmm. And so, I mean, all that, it's just like, it's not just seeing it in media or, fictionalized,
No.
this is the reality of what happens that, inspires you all to get out and for you to get out to vote.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Right. Otto, I know you were saying something. You're in the backstage. You're on now. You can unmute.
Yeah, I was saying it may not be considered a film, but I guess it can be. But it's a documentary series called Eyes on the Prize.
Mm-hmm.
So I saw that, and after you see that, if you're not inspired to vote, then nothing will inspire you to vote.
Yeah, I showed that to my kids when they were young, and the KT kids. That was one of the films that we did as a part of our program.
Yeah,
and go on.
I was saying that inspires me to vote. So much so I haven't missed any opportunity to vote. I don't care if it's dog catcher or if it's a vote. I mean, none of the candidates I may support, just to sign my name in that I voted. And so that's inspirational to vote. As I said, is such a powerful thing to see that it's all inspiration to me. That is totally why I vote, because if I didn't see that, I think if I didn't see that documentary, I wouldn't. I'd be like George Carlin.
Mm-hmm.
I would say, you know what, that my vote is not going to matter. One vote is not going to make a difference. It doesn't matter if I vote or not, or don't vote. But so many people sacrifice so much that when I saw those films, those documentaries, but I wasn't of age to vote. As soon as I became of age to vote, I voted, and I haven't stopped voting.
Now, in the chat room, we have MC Amazing who says, Roll of Thunder, Hear My Cry is one of my constant reminders to vote. And I don't know, has anybody seen the film Roll of Thunder, Hear My Cry?
I've seen it. I read the book also.
And did it have that same effect on you?
I can see how it did have that effect on Amazing. Yeah, it did.
Yeah, and I think a lot of our films and things that we see, because we can't experience everything, we can't be in everywhere, but that's why I think a lot of films, books too, television shows can be instructive to help us see that you have to take action, or that you should take action. I remember seeing this film, it's been several years back, but many, many, many decades after it had been made, of course, was called Farmer's Daughter. And it was about some woman from Norway who was a housekeeper for someone. And when she came to the place, she was an immigrant. And throughout this, working for someone else, and she had, relationships like from the farm to the farmer's daughter. And she talked about, being able to go vote. And one of the lines in that film that always stayed with me is like, be jealous with your vote. You should basically let someone come to you and flim flam you and just give you a bunch of song and dance. Your vote is a precious thing. Be jealous with it. Make people earn the right to your ballot. So I always remember that. It was at is it Myrna Loy? Is that who said Farmer's Daughter?
Mm-hmm.
It was probably one of the second film I ever saw her in, but it made such an impact, that we think of this, kind of this glib, kind of, to go out and vote, but no, this determines so much. And with many of us, I think everything seems to be so pat and dry, and we figure everything just kind of works like a well-oiled machine, but don't realize that we put people in those positions to make certain that everything runs like a well-oiled machine. And if we don't, pay attention to who is operating, the train, who's at the wheel, then we can end up off track, crashed, or whatever. But we don't think about it because we just along for the ride, we feel like sometimes. But again, even if we're along for the ride, we get to decide who it is that's, driving the train. We should take it seriously. Cranston, do you have any other words?
Yeah, well, there's one that surprisingly nobody has mentioned in either last election cycle, and it was almost something that was kind of pressing of what would happen later, but it was a TV movie called Recount with Kevin Spacey and Dennis Hopper, Tom Holland, British guy that just died not too long ago and everything. But it was about the 2000 election when it came down to 500 votes to determine who was going to become the president, and all of the wheeling and dealing and back behind the scenes machinations that everybody went through that you think is not a big deal. And there was a friend of mine who was taking classes at Florida A&M back then on weekends, and every Saturday we would go through Tallahassee and everything, and there were all the news trucks lined up downtown and everything, and it got to be something like a low rent reality show, the way people were looking at it, but it was really serious about what they were doing and the questions they were raising about what happened. And the irony, of course, is that there was a peaceful transfer of power. There was a willful concession and everything to, let's say, we're going to carry on and move things forward. And then, of course, 4 years ago, he had an insurrection to move things forward. So,
so I was looking also in the chat, and you had MC Amazing was saying, I feel like it kind of keys into the whole "we're not going back" slogan that Kamala Harris has. That people who would have you believe that there's no point in voting, which is crazy. So yeah, agreed. So they're not going back. We're all about the not going back. So
well, I think the unwritten story is that all the people who say they're not going to vote this, they were going to vote anyway. They're just trying to make it sound like they're doing something, productive. But if they really understood that this is your only chance to make a statement, that that they wouldn't be saying that.
And I think the opposite also true. I think the media really gives scrutiny and voice to a lot of people that spew hatred and misogyny, and those people are not going to vote. They haven't voted. They won't vote. They haven't voted. They're not registered to vote. They live in places where, like in Texas, it's easier to go through a marathon challenge than to vote. So it's like if you haven't registered to vote by a certain period of time, you can't register to vote, and you can be, unbeknownst to you, taken off the rolls to vote. So a lot of those people that are in the media and saying nasty things, they're not registered to vote, but the media gives them voice.
Yeah, and I think that one of the things that they should ask, which it doesn't seem that they do, is ask, by the way, are you registered to vote? And I think so many of those people would probably say, well, now that I think about it, no, I'm not actually registered to vote.
I mean, just think about, get on topic a little bit. Think about the things that people need to do, that they have responsibility to do. They're supposed to be due by a certain deadline, all the other stuff that they don't do. All of a sudden, they're going to become responsible registered voters. Just magically, people knowing where to go to vote.
Yeah, and even that's
standing in long lines to vote.
Yeah,
there's certain states that there's certain states where I think it should be that you can, register to vote the same day that you vote. I think it should be that way. But the majority of Americans are more likely to vote on America's Got Talent than they are to cast a vote for president.
It's sad, but probably true. Did anybody else want to jump in? Sonia, Dr. King?
I think the disservice we have is when they, especially in documentaries, when they show things in black and white, and people think, oh, that's so long ago, and it's not, doesn't affect us now, type of thing. As much as I dislike colorization of old films, I think it does a disservice when people think that it was a long time ago that we got these rights. It's like 50 years. That's not even that's 2 generations, right? It's 25 years for a generation or something like that.
Yeah.
So,
you're absolutely right. You're right.
So it's hard when you're trying to show somebody and they see all the black and white and they think, oh, that's just so long ago. And I'm like, no.
But you know what, though, Sonia? The thing is that you have Supreme Court justices thinking the same thing, because that's why they got rid of the the Voting Rights Act,
Because
and
we've
if you,
taken care of all of that. That doesn't
yeah, we done
affect
all that.
it.
And so, but the thing is, what they don't see, and what they somehow surprised by, is that the day after, almost the same day that that case was decided, all of those southern states enacted voter restrictions. The
Sure
exact
did.
same day.
Yep,
The exact
Sure
they
did.
same
were
day.
ready right then.
Mm. Yeah,
Yeah,
they
and
were
I'm.
waiting to do it. You know,
Mhm. Oh yeah,
is that
someone's speaking and they just cut off. Hello, hello. Is that you, Sonia? Did you just cut off?
No,
I was saying
I was.
about Lyndon Johnson?
Right, right. It was
Could you
from.
hear me?
Yes, just like you're saying about
You're,
Lyndon Johnson.
mhm.
Yeah, that was during my lifetime. I was in college, so it wasn't that well for me. I guess it didn't seem that far back, but I guess for you younger people, that was a long
No,
time ago.
for the kids, the I'm calling them kids now. The kids that came up after us,
After
they,
you,
if they see black and white, they automatically is, oh, that's so last century. Last
mm,
century was only like 20 years ago.
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
And but they get in their brain set that that's last century. We're
Hmm.
past that. We don't need that. The
Yeah.
reason
Yeah,
why we can do these things is because those were in effect.
right.
What was
You know,
it? King
I
of
was. I'm sorry. Go
I
ahead.
was, no, I was gonna say King of Harlem kind of made that impact on me to realize that a lot of these struggles were just before I was born, because living in New York, I didn't know about, okay, I didn't know about Bumpy, but mainly because I was a sheltered
Hmm.
Christian girl. I went to the parochial school, but then I realized after watching that miniseries, his headquarters was right on the same block my church was on.
Wow.
Mm,
And it didn't, to know that that much history was happening probably at the same time I was going to church
Hmm.
just made me go, wow. And realize, I saw familiar things and I'm like, I know where that is. That's around the corner from my church. I know where that is. That's such and such a place, and to not realize that the impact they were having to all the historical fights and discussions and all that they were having, even though it was a fictionalized version of it, knowing the history behind what they were portraying, and to
mhm.
know that I was literally so close to history and not realizing it.
And to your point regarding the colorization, Gary was saying in the chat, I'm starting to see more colorized images of pics from the 1960s.
And I think that will help. I
I
think
don't
Yeah.
know if
that
it's
will
gonna.
help
I
people.
don't know. I know if it's gonna help. Let me tell you why I don't think it's gonna help. Because you know that was racism then, and we have to understand that racism has the ability to change. And so back then in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, they put dogs on black people and fire hoses. Now it's different. It's a different type. And so we can't let racism necessarily be defined by what it used to be, but we didn't recognize what it is.
Right.
What
In
it's
fact,
become, because
in
they're not
fact,
going to stay put.
if we see those television shows, which shows, well, they're burning a cross in the yard, they're putting on a hood and walking around with the placards and stuff, you know, putting people in. Look at the situation with somebody like George Floyd. I mean, that's now
Mm.
that happened. That is not in the past, but it's still just as racially charged as something that happened 70 years ago.
Yeah, like
It is.
Emmett Till.
That's
Think
right.
about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
And
when you see it in color, it tends to take in your brain processes it as something more urgent than
more
something in
recent.
black and white.
I
More
don't know about
recent.
that, Sonia,
Yeah.
because we got a lot of people say, a lot of rappers that say, I think it was, I forgot who it was. Or I never experienced racism. I don't know,
Oh, what is his name? Lil Wayne. Is his
Little
name?
Wayne. I never experienced, because they think racism is that, and that's all it is, but it's not.
Yeah.
It's more than that. They got different ways to stop you from voting,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
different ways to kill you, and different ways to subject you to the terrific, horrible, oppression that they have. And so I
Yeah.
think I understand what you're saying, putting it in color, but I think it defines racism, and racism has to be defined in the era that we are in. And it's
Hmm.
not, and they're not, I haven't
It
been bitten by a
evolves.
dog,
Yeah,
but
it evolves. You know,
Mhm.
I mean,
Yeah.
for instance, my position, targeted illegality. That um, if the people behind all this know, well, that Black people, Hispanic people are more likely to do a thing, then they make that thing that these people are more likely to do illegal. Or if it was illegal, they attach more severe penalties to it.
Right.
So it's like it gets targeted illegality. And understand that, these laws, people create them. They're not like God given. They come, straight out of the ground, except for, those things that we attach to maybe the Ten Commandments. But there are things that, for instance, hey, your car isn't registered. And if you don't have your car registered, we can give you a ticket. If you don't pay that ticket within a certain amount of time, then we are going to take your license. So if you don't get your license, you can't go to your job. You can't go to your job. You can't pay your rent. And there's all this snowball effect with something that doesn't even exist. Why do you have to have a car registration in the first place? It's just a thing put in place, targeted illegality. Then the over policing of your community to make certain that if you drive out of your community that one day late, 2 days late of getting that tag done, bam, they're right there on you. And I bet you if you sat down and figured out who, by and large is paying the heftiest penalties for things like car registrations and not getting a ticket, not getting an accident, but having a ticket for not having insurance, things of that ilk. I bet you that you will find that the Black and Hispanic communities, especially in Texas where we are overwhelmingly paying those tickets or paying
Mhm.
for those
yeah,
issues not being able to pay
it,
the tickets by not being able then to drive their cars to get to go
yeah.
to
It used
work.
to be
You know?
21st century racism is different than the 20th
Right.
century racism. It used to be I can't vote. Now it's I can't breathe. You don't get
Mhm.
a chance to even vote because I'm killing you, right?
Yeah,
I'm pulling you over because you got tickets. I'm removing you from the voters registration.
the
You're
voter
not even
rolls. That's
registered
right.
to vote anymore.
Again,
I'm not
targeted
oppressing you.
illegality is I make the things that you do that I know that you're going to do because I'm making sure you don't have enough money to pay these certain things
Yeah.
like registrations, car insurance, and stuff. Then I
And they
stop you
studied
the road.
and they studied us.
Yeah, yes. And that's the thing I used to think when I was very young, that these things were happenstance and coincidental. And the older I get, the more
Yeah.
perspective I gain. I said, no, this is not happenstance. These are not coincidental. These things are planned. I mean, and I don't think that, in fact, people at first said, well, that's kind of a conspiracy theorist. But then just wait a few years and then you'll see, well, they'll come out with the documents showing where they had done this and made this plan, like COINTELPRO, things like that. That was the thing, that yes, it was planned. It wasn't just, oh,
Mhm.
you silly Negroes, you're just over overstating these things. No,
Mhm.
no, there was a plot, and it just takes a little bit of time before you get access to the documentation that establishes it, and even things like that. A lot of those things we would not have known except for television, programs, film, documentaries. We would never have known that these things actually happened because it's not like they're going to teach it to you in your classroom, school, generally. So a lot of times you become aware of them through films, through either documentary or fictionalized, for films or a book, adaptation that's gone to film. But I think this is how it is that we do get certain information, or at least begin the inquiry. And I'm looking in the chat, and Gary was saying Trump wants cops to have more authority and face the consequences. And Project 2025 tells you what they're going to do. So, I mean, even that, things that, we are made aware, even these things through the media, because let's face it, who would know about Project 2025 if people were discussing it, in the media, on social media, um, news programs wouldn't know that this is even a thing out there, you know.
Mhm.
So these things are very important and should, compel us to get out and vote.
Well, they've done a study. Current generations don't even get their news from newspapers or history books like that. They go to social media and comedy shows and TV programs and film and take those more as word of gospel, which I wish that more people would realize that and make their messages go out that way. The thing, if they don't show it, if they showed it on TV, they have to be truthful, because you have to be truthful on TV. No, you don't.
Well,
But
you
we
don't.
But
But you know,
T-
because
the
TV,
thing about
film,
comedy,
and
Good,
I was
the
gonna
Anna.
thing
say,
about comedy shows is
Mhm.
you're right about comedy shows, because I learned a lot of stuff watching the Daily Show and John Oliver, like the thing about trying to get rid of the electoral college. A big push was to get rid of the electoral college. Well,
mhm.
they have a new law that's being passed. I had no idea that was being passed, that makes the electoral college irrelevant. I had no
Yeah,
idea.
that
And
it
so it's
bases the
close. It's
presence of
like
the popular vote.
43 electoral votes away for making the electoral college irrelevant.
Right.
And I
Yes.
had no idea that the push was being done for that.
That's the thing.
And the other thing is that you hear those words all the time, and you don't know why the electoral college exists. And then you say, well, wait a minute, why do we still have this going on 200 years later? So,
Yeah, and we need to ask. And it really doesn't make sense when you have entire states that don't have as many people as some states as larger cities, and yet they have equal um, an equal amount of electoral votes to make a determination as to who this is going to be president. It doesn't make sense, and I mean,
I mean,
a lot of
Penelope, you can talk about this new
Mhm.
legislation that is agreement between states, the most populous states,
Mhm.
agreeing that when the popular vote in their state goes a certain way, that they get to the 270 electoral votes, and so it won't be these states where we're talking about. Uh, excuse my French, but Florida having a major say, or Texas having a major say who's our next president.
Or I'm going to
So
tell you, any of the ones that they start telling us these battleground states will make them irrelevant, and that's what I would like to be done too. All battleground states to be made irrelevant. It should be whoever's got the popular vote, and make people. Then that will make the candidates have to really work for each individual vote, and they need
that's
to be able
right.
to work
And
each individual vote.
this new legislation that
That's
I didn't even know. I mean, they're close. I didn't even know it was being done, and I found
Yeah,
out on a comedy show.
there you go.
well,
As
that's
we
the
talk
other
about,
thing.
go ahead.
Well, yeah, that's would be the other thing is that now I have a debate with my millennial nephew about people getting news from social media, mainly because it's not exactly these people are not trained journalists. It's somebody's opinion, but it's an often unfounded opinion, and so I don't think of social media as being a legitimate way of getting your news. But if it could be presented on social media in a way that is responsible and thoroughly thought out, that might be a way to go, or something like that.
Well,
People
but
will sit.
at least Cranston should start the conversation. If
Yeah.
somebody says something, and I don't think you should take it, as holy writ. It should begin the process of you asking, "Is this true?" What other platforms are saying the same thing? Are those things true? Can I do the research? I mean, and I would say, case in point,
Yeah.
at the very beginning of this campaign season, there was this push. Just a blanket of information saying how Kamala Harris put over 2,000 Black men in jail for marijuana, And people took that as holy writ. You all remember that?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they just took, and then it's been, that's only like in the last month or two that people have started saying, well, no, that is not true. That she was not this rabid prosecutor putting all the black men in jail. That was just some, you know, garbage that somebody put out there because they knew people wouldn't check. They knew
Exactly.
people just repeat it. And then next week they just repeat it and repeat it and repeat it. Because as you said, Cranston, that's what social media does.
Mm-hmm.
You know, people look at something and then they say, oh, I'm gonna like, and then I'm going to share, you know, with all these other people doing no work, no
Mm-hmm.
research to make a determination as to whether or not it was actually true. So, but you know, I think they did a very good job recently of dealing with that. But for a very long time, a lot of people I know were backing off for Kamala Harris, thinking she's this rabid prosecutor throwing all the black people in jail. And it wasn't the case. It's just that people who knew how to
Mm-hmm.
manipulate social media just did a very good job of it. And with that in mind, I wanted to say another show. And I hate that I cannot remember the name of the episode, but it was in the Twilight Zone, Jordan Peele's Twilight Zone. John Cho was
Oh yeah.
a political, I don't know what
Consultant. Yeah.
so yes, and he was on the bad side of his career, downside of his career, and then decided that he was going to make this big push by supporting, using his talents to promote somewhat 12-year-old, 13-year-old boy as president. And he did, and he supported him, put him up there. Then by the time he realized that he, I don't say he created a monster, but certainly had given a monster a platform,
Mm-hmm.
it was too late. And that thing also reminds me, get out and vote, but also don't be taken by nonsense. You know, oh, this kid, he's 13, he's an outsider. We want to vote for an outsider. It's like,
Yeah.
okay.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, no, you want people that know how the system works. You don't want people because of steep learning curve, and we don't have time to spend 2 years teaching somebody how it works.
Yeah, I don't think people vote like that. I think right now, based on the sentiment that's in the media likes conflict. They're like
Yeah,
pure, black and white conflict. If Hitler was running instead of Trump, the polls would still be tied.
yeah, because they would say, "Oh man, looks like a dog fight to us. Looks like a horse race to us." You know, this person says this, now this other person says this. These things are not equal. For
Yeah.
the,
But what they do is they play on people's value systems. They know
yeah,
they studied your values and they know how to play on that and how to divide us. And we go for it.
yep, every time.
Yeah.
Yeah, we,
Well.
we debate we debate as to whether Hitler has a bad history, but is he really that bad? And
Mhm.
that's not
Yeah,
just because you could debate something doesn't make it debatable, right?
right,
So if somebody
right.
has done some horrible things, maybe they should be qualified as a candidate for anything. They
Yeah,
should be running for anything, and no one should be allowed to vote for Hitler. You say
yeah.
no, Hitler, you can't be a candidate. Instead of saying, oh well, let's give equal voice to each side.
Mm-hmm. Gary's in the chat and he's saying to be undecided tells you the person is either intellectually dishonest or intellectually lazy. It's really not hard to find information. And I agree. Sometimes you can be misinformed, but you can find information, to help you make your decision. I mean, it was very interesting today. Of course, again, comedy show. What was it? What was the Daily Show today that we were watching? Otto, the skit with Ronnie Chang, and they were talking up to the people who were playing Magic the Gathering,
Right.
and how one of the guys, the young guy, black guy, was saying that he was undecided, and then he was saying that he was Haitian, and his family that they do not eat cats, and so they started playing a little game of Magic the Gathering using like a J.D. Vance type of character, and one of the things was, um, okay, so now people, like your family, you have to get out of the country. So get up and leave the table. And so the guy said, I have to leave? So yes, you have to leave. And then the Ronnie Chang says, yeah, not so undecided now, are you?
Well, I think the thing is that they need to do is and I found myself doing this on a daily basis when these political ads come on, because you have to fact check everything because they will say something. You have to be skeptical about everything. Because there was this one of the amendments in Florida, where there are 6 amendments, but the 2 big ones are number 3, which is recreational marijuana, and number 4, which is
Abortion ban.
yeah. And one of the ads that came on and they have this very earnest person saying, because they're doing this even at because they found out that even at 4 weeks or whatever it is, 4 minutes or whatever it is, that the baby can feel pain. And I was thinking that sounds a little bit extreme. So I looked it up, and I found out they did find one article that said that there is some debate as to whether or not that's really actual, but nobody knows that for sure. But they just present that as, well, that's a fact. And if you don't question it, you don't try to say, well, where did you get this from?
Mm-hmm.
But but Clancy, the thing is, even to me, and I hate to say this, but even if that was true and a fact, it wouldn't matter to me because it's not my choice, and I don't know how the Democrats allowed the act of a woman's ability to choose what to do with her body and her life, how they made that into a pro-abortion stance, or allowed it to be deemed as pro-abortion. You're not pro-abortion. I'm pro-privacy and that's you. That's your business. That's why I'm pro.
But the idea is that they can conceal it in a lot of other stuff. For example, it makes the fact is that you don't want to murder children. And so that's why.
But I don't want to murder anybody for that rate.
Yeah.
If you murder people, you go to jail because it's a crime. But the issue is this. What are they going to say if you say to somebody, well, you can't have an abortion because you were raped, by someone. So what are you going to do if I say, instead, I take my own life? What do you do? Bring me back to life and put me in jail? I mean, ultimately, the body is mine, and I make all the choices related to the body.
Because your body.
Because my body.
Well, this being Florida, though, you're speaking for the those who can't speak for themselves.
Well, after the child is born and they get to speak for themselves, if you're pro-life, why aren't you pro-housing? Why aren't you pro-food? Why aren't you pro-feeding people?
Why aren't you public education? Yeah.
How do you get to
pick and choose which part of life you approve of?
How do you?
What the person say? No, I'm not. You're not pro-life. You're pro-birth, not pro-life.
I'm anti-woman.
It's like once you're born, you're on your own.
I want to.
Well, the ultimate thing is to say that I'm against abortion, but I'm pro-death penalty.
Right.
I want to control women's bodies. That's what I want.
That's what it is. We want to control what happens to women's bodies.
And so it's not pro-life. How did they get away with that?
It's control.
And again, if you tell someone, okay, you are having a child that you had not prepared for. So as the government, we're going to give you everything you need in order to take care of this child. So you don't have to worry about insurance. You don't have to worry about whether or not this child is fed. You don't have to worry about whether or not this child will get to go to a decent school. So all those things that you were saying, I don't want to have a child because I'm so scared that I'm not going to be able to do all these things. Well, we're going to take care of that for you. But you don't. You don't take care of those things.
Well,
because
the thing is,
in a position.
Well, the thing is, they were talking with some people who were of that thing. And it's almost like a scene out of the Stepford Wives is when you ask them, well, how are you going to do this? And how are you going to do that? And they just smile and say, well, we can work that out after it comes along, but we just want to get this out of the way now. And they don't have to say how they're going to work it out, just that they are going to do it. Of course, it becomes a moral failing on your part that you're in this situation, you know, in the first place.
Yeah,
In the,
but it should be, and again, it shouldn't even come to that. Because the reality is that it's an issue of privacy, the right to privacy in my own body. We have HIPAA laws. So those things keep, you know, individuals, give you the right to keep their medical information separate and apart from others. But that goes for all people except for pregnant women. You don't get to have that protection.
Well, it goes to something that would make, if you listen carefully, you can hear the sound of the signers of the Declaration and stuff spinning in their graves. But the idea is that we are a Christian country, which is not what they wanted us to be. And as a Christian country, we have to do Christian things, and that's one of the Christian things we have to do.
Again, not a Christian country. The Establishment Clause separates church from state.
How they get away with that? I don't see no cross and no money.
Well,
there's no denomination of dollars or coins that has a cross on it. What Christian?
Well, I don't know if it was Margaret Taylor Greene or her former friend Bolbert, but they had said that we need to get rid of this separation of church and state nonsense and get back to what the Constitution is all about.
Yeah, and that's like what it's about, the separation of church and state.
Yeah.
That's the very basis of this country, is the separation of church and state, which goes to show that they probably didn't listen too much in school.
Well, we all know that. We all know that Jesus wrote the Constitution. So.
Oh, yeah.
Well, it's like an intellectual version of rock, paper, scissors and stuff, you know, where church, you know, and religion and stuff covers everything, which is why you can be evangelical and say that even though one candidate is not exactly a born-again Christian or something like that and stuff, but he's an imperfect vessel carrying a perfect message.
And that's kind of like insanity.
But then it goes back to the thing about faith, that you have to have faith that this is how it's going to turn out. Now, the idea that they were saying that one of the reasons a lot of evangelicals were in favor of Israel is that the destruction of Israel is one of the signs of the second coming or something like that. So as soon as Iran nukes them and stuff, we'll all end up in heaven. So
yeah, I keep thinking that. It's like, and Gary was saying in the chat that love the fetus, hate the child is their philosophy.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to understand that I think of it more like, now that I'm older and maybe more cynical, is that if you think of regular human beings as cattle, then it is their position that, of course, they want you to have more children, because your more children who are uneducated will end up in the prison system that they own and make money off of. So yeah, they want you to continue having children. They want you to have children and be in poverty at the same time, because poor people are big business.
Yeah. Well, that was something that we know, and we should do a show sometime about all of the things that we learned that are not really true as you get older, or they were just so incredible. And there's some of these the more educational or attempted educational videos on YouTube where they say conspiracies that you find out are true. Because I had heard for a long time the thing about the CIA was flooding the country with cocaine and stuff to help finance wars in South America. And I said, well, that is so ridiculous. You wouldn't believe it until you found out, well, kind of. They actually were doing it. And, Oliver North got a super get out of jail free card. And they should dig Reagan up and impeach him just for letting all of this stuff happen. But the thing that just absolutely shocked me was when they came up with a sentencing guideline, and this is the other thing that they teach you about elections, is you go down ticket, because those are the ones that will make a difference somewhere down the way. that the automatic sentencing guideline during the war on drugs was if you had 5 grams of crack, you could get 5 years in prison automatically. In order to get 5 years in prison automatically, if you had powdered cocaine, you had to have 500 grams.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have to say, well, how is that equal or fair or anything like that? But, you know,
But it got passed. But it
it
got
got
passed.
passed. It was
And
a war on
And
drugs.
Bill Clinton
Again,
passed the crime.
yeah,
Bill Clinton passed
targeted
the crime bill.
illegality.
Yeah.
That's
Bill
all it
Clinton
is.
passed,
Targeted illegality.
and Bill Clinton passed the crime bill. And
Right.
we got to come to grips with ourselves too, that the people that we vote into office, and we say one is, you know, worse than another or something. We got to hold people accountable. We can't just sit and vote
Yeah.
and then go back home and watch, you know, Oprah or something. I have no idea, but
Mhm.
anything, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
We got to hold people accountable. We had a president for 8 years that we had so much hope and you know, confidence in, and we let that president off the hook for 8 years. In 8 years, we got our asses whooped. I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
We got 8 years of ass whooping.
Yeah.
That's what we got.
Unfortunate. I mean, you know, because we had so much hope that what we did was we took our hands off the wheel. You know, we said, okay, you got it. And we took our hands off the wheel.
Michael
and we gotta learn
Brown,
that that's, yeah,
Trayvon Martin,
yeah.
dudes that can, you
And
know,
we took our hands off the wheel.
yeah. I mean, they're walking around free.
Yep.
They're walking around free. And, you know, you could disagree with Joe Biden, and I know we're getting off way out, of course. But
Yes, we are.
I really have confidence if Trayvon Martin and Michael Brown had been murdered during Biden's administration, those people who committed those crimes would be in jail.
Yeah, they'd be in prison. They'd be in prison. So, but again, like you say, we're a little off topic. And anybody else have any films that put them in the mind to say, this is the type of film that I watch and say, yeah, I'm going to get out and I'm going to vote. Or we, you know, tell someone, you see this will make you get out and vote. And I know one of the things you were saying, Sonia, I think, the autobiography of Miss Jane Pittman, you know, that is one of those things, you know, somebody's this long life and you get to this point and then, you know, yeah, everything that I should have, every right that I should have, I should definitely be taking advantage of it, you know? So I think, yeah, absolutely. That is one also. I mean, I know it doesn't specifically speak to going to the polls, but certainly the concept that times are changing, we should be taking advantage and not letting people push us back from rights that
That
have
people died
ours,
to
that are
give
ours.
us.
Yeah, right, that are ours. And that's another thing that bothers me sometimes, like young people, even older people that don't vote, say, I'm not going to vote, say, this is not a gift. You know, these are things that belong to us. The right to vote belongs to us. During the civil rights struggles in the South, the point is, why are you stacking up impediments for me to do a thing that I have a right to do legally? That was the point. I had a legal right to vote. Why are you stopping me from doing it?
How many angels can dance on the head of
Yes,
a
on
pin?
the head of a pin. Yeah, the poll taxes and all
Do
these
you
things.
know?
That, yeah, well, I don't know, but do you? You know, so that's the issue. But all these things that we have a right to, we were, you know, basically barred from doing. And it's not wasn't the issue that, you know, you have a right to vote. Why are you barring me from the right that I have to vote?
And the other thing is you have to just watch is you realize that it's an entertaining film, but watch real life every once in a while. Here they had the state had overwhelmingly passed a measure saying if you have done your time, haven't done, you know, everything, and you back out, you get reinstated the right to vote.
Yes.
And the first thing the governor did, who thinks he's going to run for president again in 28, said was, yeah, but you didn't pay all of the your legal fees. So after you pay that, then you can go vote. And they said, well, isn't that kind of like a poll tax? But no,
Yeah.
that's just you, you know, And of course, when you have the legislature behind you and everything, all the people that, some people let get elected because you decide I'm not going to vote, or you only vote for the first two names on the ballot and then forget the rest of it. They back them up on it.
Well, I know a film, Penelope, that makes me not want to vote, and that's that film called Wag the Dog.
Mm.
And the reason is because it just seems like, the manipulation and cleverness of certain people, so I guess self-importance and really not doing anything for the people, but enjoying these positions of power and playing games that affect everyday lives of people. It's like, why do we vote for people? It's like, ugh, it makes you so cynical,
Yeah, I can get that too. The reality that these individuals see normal people, everyday people for whom the system is supposed to work, as basically dupes and pawns, for their careers, to elevate their careers, maintain the positions that they're in. It's like money. At some point, we said, "Well, how much money do these millionaires, billionaires, multi-billionaires have to have?" And I think it was a few weeks ago, Cranston that was saying something like one of the Koch's Koch brothers were saying something like, it's not, the money it's not the issue, it's power, and the money is just a way of keeping score. That
Well, yeah.
Money that we never spend in a lifetime. 10
You got
lifetimes.
you got two billionaires. You got two major newspapers, the Los Angeles Times and the Washington Post, that usually come out with endorsements of presidential candidates. And this year, both are owned by billionaires, and they decided not to endorse anyone. And so, Washington Post is owned by Jeff Bezos, who's owns Amazon and wants to fly to the moon or whatever the hell he does. And the LA Times is owned by an Asian individual. I'm not sure where he got his money. I think it was a biotech industry that he's received his funds from. But once again, if you got one candidate who's Hitler and another candidate that it may not be perfect, but is better than Hitler, how do you say, well, this year we're going to stay out of it, we're going to be neutral?
Because their
Right.
issue is, I want someone to buy my product.
Tell me about the situation with Elon Musk and the fact that he is, I mean, it sounds like he's going to be the president from the way things are going. If Trump wins,
because the thing is, people don't know how much money that guy gets from the federal government.
Yes, that's the thing. Yeah, and without him and his missiles and stuff, we won't have a space program. So he can decide not to let us do that.
But you know what? The reality is we hadn't been doing it for a very long time, so it's not like we're going to miss it, And it's the thing that because if the deficit spend, we can rebuild it. I mean, why would you give somebody like that access?
He can pay millions. He can pay millions, hundreds of millions of dollars for it.
By the government, we pay him.
By your tax dollars.
Yeah, we pay him.
Exactly, we pay him.
Well,
so we need to make we need to make a film or a TV show that entertainingly explains how government really works.
Yeah.
So that people understand.
And are we willing to take a stand and say, you know what, Bezos, he owns the Washington Post. This is a contest between Hitler and maybe even an imperfect politician, but because of that, we're not going to use Amazon. We're not going to use Amazon Prime. We're not going to use any Bezos related products. Are we willing to do that? Or are we willing to say, you know what? It is what it is.
Yeah, that's the same token that the other side was like, we're going to not watch anything Disney owns because Disney was doing all the sacrilegious things, until you point out that means they can't watch ESPN. They can't do all the other stuff that they couldn't do because Disney owns all of that.
Well, something that just shocked me, and this was way back in the 80s, that there was a story where General Electric, which I think is the 6th largest company in the world and a major defense contractor and everything like that, needed to borrow some money. and they found somebody who's going to loan them the money they needed to do whatever it is. And we're talking like billions with a capital B back when that was real money. And the person they were going to borrow the money from was Warren Buffett. And I'm looking at that and I'm thinking about this is a private citizen who has enough money that he can make a loan to the sixth largest company in the world. And I realized that these people are past being James Bond villains because it's like they don't have to take over the world. They have already taken over the world.
Yes.
But they convince you that you're powerless. People who are teachers, people who belong to the unions, people who are in maid service and health services, if they say, you know what, we're sick of the way the country is direction is going, we're going to get all of our money, all of our pension funds, all our investments, and we're taking it out of Wall Street, you will get the country that you want the next day.
That's right, because TIAA crap, the teachers union, the teachers pension fund, that runs Wall Street. And the
And
people
what
at the
about
top of
with
it don't even let people
with the
know.
what about the housing industry? And I heard recently that Wall Street is buying up all the houses. How true is that?
Well, that started happening, in all honesty, back during the mortgage crisis. And we have to think about this. And this is something I always thought about, but never, of course, they keep you always off balance so you don't have time to really do the things you really need to do, which is people who had mortgages bought mortgage insurance, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when they were foreclosed on, then the mortgage insurance paid off the house, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So once the house is paid off with the mortgage insurance that you had to pay for, just like if your car had an accident and something happened and your car insurance that they paid off your car, right? Then you would get that banged up piece of garbage car. You have to figure out whether you're going to send it over to wherever, whether you're going to put it in your yard or whatever you're going to do. But the reality is, once the insurance paid it off, you would own it. So how is it then that you have mortgage insurance? Mortgage insurance pays off the house when they foreclose and put you in default, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it ends up with they keep the money, paid off house, and they get the house back.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It's when you let the people who run the industry write the rules. It's like when Florida is,
I don't even think it's that the industry write the rules.
Yeah.
I think it's that people didn't say, wait a minute, I had mortgage insurance. The mortgage insurance paid off the debt.
But people don't understand
So
this
why
stuff, Penelope. And the
is
thing
the
is,
house, not
but Penelope, people don't understand
name?
this.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been going on, since, as you said, the housing crisis, which happened during the entire Obama administration, and included into the Trump administration. I mean, it could have been changed. Policy could have been changed, but it wasn't.
Yeah, but your house was insured. You had mortgage insurance, which you paid for, which you paid for to pay off in the instance that something happens, you're unable to pay your note. So you paid the mortgage insurance, and it pays off the house. But now you don't have a house. How did that happen? How does the bank who got paid off end up with the house?
Read your mortgage.
Read
your mortgage documents.
There was legislation introduced; it just never passed.
But the whole point is, there didn't have to be any legislation. This is a contract.
Yeah.
This is what is included in the contract for when you buy your house and you have to buy the mortgage insurance. That's part of that contract. And you paid that when you were paying your note, right?
Mm-hmm.
So,
but the thing is, many times I've been in court many times when the person foreclosing on people's houses, it wasn't an individual, it wasn't a private person, it wasn't even a bank. It was the federal government in the form of Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. They were foreclosing on people's houses that were insured. And the thing is that, you talk about GI bills and FHA insurance. This is our government doing this stuff. This is not individuals. We're feeding the monster that's slowly, surely killing us.
Right. Gary's in the chat and he was saying we need to enforce antitrust laws because of corporate monopolies. I think that's what Kamala's planning on. We just need to let the Congress that she can work with. I'm going to tell you, when I left law school, that's what I wanted to do, antitrust. But I mean, that was gone. By the time, I got in the world, started practice, there's no such thing as antitrust. I mean, the monopolists, basically, I don't want to say they won, but they pretty much, kind of
Thank you,
got
Bill
the game in
Clinton.
hand. Yeah, Bill Clinton.
Got rid of Glass-Steagall too. Remember that?
Mhm.
Remember that law?
Yep, that kept your insurance people from being able to take your money and play it in the stock market. Your pension plans, stuff like that, they couldn't take your money and use it to make investments. Those things were separate. Not after Clinton got into office. Nope. After that, no Glass-Steagall, no separation, no boundary. But he
Well,
was fine.
you know what they say, what's good for General Motors is good for America. And it's just, we're all hoping they'll go ahead and break up Google and everything, and then we'll be safe while they're doing all this other stuff that they're not going to do anything about.
Yeah, and then the government owned General Motors and sure
Yeah.
didn't do a whole lot of damn good with it when we owned it.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean,
because
then,
what we should have done, I hate to go off the topic again, is the fact that make all those unionized jobs, right? And then affect the country's infrastructure. There's a lot of work for people to get done. There's a lot of work to get done.
how can you imagine if you got a General Motors and you give it a contract to go through and restructure all the Amtrak trains,
Yeah.
and to put down more train
More
lines of
tracks.
Amtrak.
So Amtrak doesn't have to share the tracks with
with
freight trains.
Yeah. So
And do high speed rail.
Yep.
So if I take the train from Texas to New York, it doesn't take me a week.
Mm-hmm. There's a lot of stuff that could have been done, but again, when you are beholden to certain interests, you are not looking at what can be done for the citizens. So what can be done for your benefactors. And that's very, very unfortunate.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when there are too many films on stuff like that. How it is that you get caught up.
How about All the President's Men?
Yeah.
Does that make you inspire you to do something? Get up.
I mean, All the President's Men it doesn't inspire me to vote, but it really makes me kind of sad because we think that the process should work. The people that we put in these roles should be self-policing, and they are not. I guess that's the other problem, that your hope is that people will be self-policing, understand their role and their responsibility, but they do not. Again, the difference between being in power and having responsibility. And too many of these people do not have responsibility. They only want, quote unquote, power. Just got to, deal with other daddy issues, and the rest of us have to go along for the ride. Mm-hmm. So that's, basically all. But I mean, I'm looking at the time, and we're getting a little bit over, and talking about things that are not exactly on the list, but still good and fun. Anybody else, before we finish out, have a film, television show, news program, whatever you want to say, that inspires you to get out there and vote?
I the old film, what's it called? The Steinbeck movie of Mice and Men.
Oh no, for me, there was Grapes of Wrath.
Grapes of Wrath. I'm sorry, Grapes of Wrath.
Grapes of Wrath.
Grapes of Wrath. To show you what you can aspire to as a country, right? You can aspire to that,
And it's a horrible thing. Again, that about work, about people who are being pushed from one end of the country to the other because of the Dust Bowl, and all people want to do is just to be stable, get stability, a job, place to sit and to eat, but they put that us versus them mentality wherever people are in order to maintain power. Even down to one portion of the film, and I hope you'll see it or read the book, where they're bringing the new people to come in and pick the fruit and pay them more than the people who were there picking the fruit who were on strike. But all they had to do was pay the people who were on strike the money that they paid the people that came in after them. But no, they want to punish them for even asking for the money that they were due. So it is insane. It is insane.
Right. And nowadays, if you think about joining a union, or you consider joining a union, you're deemed a communist, and people don't even know what these words mean, like communism and socialism and fascism.
Mm-mm.
We've undermined education so much. These words are thrown around. The people using them don't even know what they mean.
Right. Sure. Right.
And people don't
Chris?
bother to look at it. They don't bother to look it up and find out what it means.
No.
They just accept whatever somebody tells them it means.
Yep. It's true.
Okay, there's
Yes.
one last program that inspired all the government episodes of Schoolhouse Rock. Remember when they actually
Yep.
taught you how the government works and made you
Yes.
feel
Mhm.
like you were part of the action?
Yeah.
I'm
Yes.
always a bill, and I'm sitting
Yes.
in your
There on
Capitol.
Capitol.
Yeah. 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 And I
No.
think it's
1920, yeah,
right, well, because it made you feel like, okay, I'm part of this.
right.
And we have people now that try to make people who've been here for generations, hundreds of years, to try to make you feel as though you don't have a right to be here in the country that you're in. It's kind of insane.
Well, along with Nikki said, what family inspired, I remember my mom to actually, back when they actually had the big old pole thing that you had to
Mhm.
turn the lever and
Yeah.
had the curtain behind you.
Yeah.
I was the one who got to pull the lever. So,
You're right.
you know, those sort of, and she had learned that from TV. I don't know what TV show she watched, but
Mhm.
something had inspired her to, I'm taking my daughter into the poll and showing her how to vote.
All
You
right.
can't even do that now.
Nope. Nope.
Mhm.
Actually, you can, because I voted Wednesday, and I noticed there were a lot of people bringing in there, and these are like elementary school age children with them to show them,
The
well,
process.
one day you'll be able to do this.
That's right. This is
And
the
I
process.
kept thinking, were they doing this because they wanted to show we're going to vote for this person and that's going to make history, or were they just having a teachable moment with their kids? So
Mhm.
Well, they used to have the school votes where they'd actually take the voting machines into the school and the kids would get to
Mhm.
vote on what's the school's candy or something like that. But it was actually so that they would learn how to fill out the vote. Well, back when I did it, you'd pull the
Mhm.
levers to indicate your vote, things like that. I was like, why can't we do that now, and or make a TV, showing kids this is the process of voting and this is why it's important.
Why can't we do
one of
both
the
of them?
elementary schools here did this. So they wanted to show the kids how an election works. So they set everything up, and they voted, and and this was way back when, but that the second George Bush won by a landslide because the teacher who was in charge of setting up this teachable moment said he was the president of our school, and that's why.
Wow.
Why can't
That's
we use our
crazy.
phones? Why can't we use our phones to vote?
Yeah.
Why is
Say,
it that? Why
I
is it?
was going to say before you get up there that Jerry was in the chat, and he said when the film that he put down was Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, and then also added that civics was excised from a lot of schools, so the younger generation has little understanding of them.
It hasn't been
That's a
completely
big problem.
excised. It's been changed that you can't change some the reasons why behind. They give you the date and the thing that happened, but they don't give you the reasoning behind why that was so important.
Mhm.
So, because I've been doing some research on what they're teaching in civics, and people think
What's
like I
civic?
was trying to explain I remember having to go through, identify all the county seats and make sure I knew all the county names, who was the mayor of all the, or whatever, the official that was in charge for the counties. And they don't do that anymore. But,
What
or
do
they
you?
know
I mean, they,
1920, women got the right to vote. They don't tell them about all the horrors that women went through before then. And they don't, especially don't tell them that Black women couldn't vote at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Or
Yeah,
that
everybody else vote
white women didn't
women.
want white women wanted to vote, but they didn't want black men to have it because they said that if black men were given the right to vote before they did, that black men would rape them.
Yeah, things like that.
I say I
Yeah.
have no idea how those things
Yeah.
have any relation to each other, but you know,
Yeah, but
that's how they got, you know, white males to, you know, rally to their cause.
Yeah. Tell what I think is tell the whole damn story. What I'm saying, that's all.
right.
Mhm.
But see, but they have their value systems that they develop over the years, and it's hard to try to fight against that stuff because they pass it down from generation to generation.
Mhm.
See, that's a trick that I thought. I thought that these old people from the like 20s, 30s, and 40s that held these racist views would like die off, and there'd be a new
No.
generation of people who didn't think that.
Mhm.
No,
No.
Mm-mm. No.
they hand it down like it's an old antique.
No,
Mhm.
it's only when they watch those younger people watch the late night comedy shows now that they're going, wait a minute, you mean what all that my parents were saying wasn't? And that's the only thing I've seen people successfully start thinking after. So thank you to all the late night comedy
Yeah,
shows.
thank you. All right. Well, guys are saying that we're out of time, I think. And again, anybody want to, you know, anything else, any other film, television show that you want to?
Watch the Daily Show.
Mm-hmm.
Watch the John Oliver Show.
Yep.
Stephen
Watch
Colbert.
Yep.
watch Jimmy Kimmel. I can't believe I'm saying I hate Jimmy Kimmel, but watch
Yep.
that.
Yeah.
Watch
Oh,
that stuff too.
Jimmy. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness, the stuff he's done
Yeah.
lately. Oh,
Mhm.
Well,
I mean,
Seth Meyers is good too. With his a closer look.
Closer look, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah,
And
get out there.
there's a new show on CNN. I can't remember. Roy Wood Jr. is now in charge of it. It's a version of a British show where they dissect the news and turn it into a game show type setting.
Wow.
Uh,
Was that
but I
one?
can't-
Have we got news for you?
Yeah,
we got
that's
news
it.
for you.
Have we got
Okay.
news for you? That's it.
Okay.
Yeah,
Never
so-
heard of it.
If you're talking about today, Walter Cronkite will have a laugh track or an audio.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Put a
he'd
lot
Because
have
of
that's
it-
the
work
only
on
way.
that.
That's the only way he's going to be able to tell you what's going on. You can't turn into the ABC, CBS. You can't turn into the network news. CNN, MSNBC, and Fox are not going to give it to you straight. They just aren't.
I like PBS.
Yeah, but that's
PBS
PBS
News.
not what it used to be. I mean, they've really, you know, cut back on the stuff. But still, you're right. That's a good place to go get
Yeah,
information.
better than a lot of the others.
Yeah.
Or
agreed.
watch
more-
BBC.
It's more serious because on
Yeah.
a lot of the others, they take everything so lightly, but they take
Yeah.
it more seriously.
Agreed.
Or
And
watch.
everybody-
I was gonna say, or watch BBC News. Watch how other countries view us.
Mhm.
Yes, yeah.
Or Al Jazeera.
Yes,
Get it?
people tend to hate Al Jazeera because it's a Arabic. They forget that used to be. It's Al Jazeera America used to be
Mhm.
Current TV, which was more on the grounds
Mhm.
journalism. And then they just ran out of money, and so Al Jazeera bought them.
But you know what though? Back in the day, you used to not have to work this hard to find out what's going on, truthfully,
Right.
or stay up past your bedtime to find out what's
Yeah.
going on.
Yeah.
You know, and these stupid daytime television shows with everything's a damn joke. It's like it's funny. You know, it's like here's Donald Trump. He's so funny. You look at the things. There's nothing funny to laugh at, man. You set my morning off bad for me to go to work by these morning shows. You know,
Well, I thought it was interesting that it wasn't the regular news that told you that during his day working at McDonald's that they had closed the restaurant down. All the people going through the lines were Trump supporters, and he just gave them the stuff, and it wasn't what they ordered. He just waited till they pulled up, gave them the bag, and have them go off for the next stuff.
They didn't order. Yeah, they didn't order anything. They just pulled up in a caravan.
Oh my goodness!
And then we
What
got
insanity!
Then we got this outbreak of hysteria. What's going on?
Yeah.
Incidents? Who knows?
Also, Gary is in the chat. He would say free speech TV is good. So if you have free speech TV, you might want to get that a look see as well. All right, y'all. Well, this is it for real this time.
For real.
For realsies this time.
Please
Thank you.
subscribe, share, and subscribe.
Yeah. Thank you all for joining us this evening and going through some of our favorite Get You to the Polls TV film offerings, and then also just a great discussion. So I hope to see us back here again next week in the other hood. Take care of yourselves. Have a productive week and a great remainder of the weekend.
Thank you too.
Good
All right.
night.
Good night.
And vote early, vote often.
That's right.